Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. More Neville nuggets, some more Goddard goodies to share. This one's awesome. The Effortless Way. The Effortless Way. Love this. Absolutely love it. Still a part of the same book. We've been doing this one for a while now, lots of chapters. The Power of Awareness. It's fantastic how really it is the path of least resistance. And I think a lot of us tend to maybe make it harder than we need to. I think some of us are nailing it and just maybe don't give it enough time or allow it to unfold enough. You know, maybe we start to look too much at our feet and pull up the handbrake here every once in a while, but everything else you're doing perfectly. But there's some great angles that really come into manifestation that Goddard brings up in this particular chapter. And it's really powerful. And it's not very long, so I'm going to get right into it. The principle of least action governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. Right? Everyone wants that. Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So, to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action. And the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. The day you fully realize the power of assumption, you discover that it works in a complete conformity with this principle. It works by means of attention minus effort. Thus, with least action through an assumption, you hurry without haste and reach your goal without effort. Because creation is finished, what you desire already exists. It is excluded from view because you can see only the contents of your own consciousness. It is the function of an assumption to call back the excluded view and restore full vision. It is not the world, but your assumption that change. An assumption brings the invisible into sight. It is nothing more nor less than seeing with the eye of God, i.e., example, imagination. Assumption is a powerful beast. And it really is. I want to give an example, and I'm going to get, back there's not a whole lot more, so don't worry. There's a great example that I had in my life when I was younger. It was very frustrating for me. And I was a waiter at a restaurant, really nice restaurant for that matter, and I met the manager through means of, basically I was working at a convenience store, and I had done a lot of food service type stuff, catering and whatnot. And I kept approaching him because he worked in a really nice restaurant, was the manager, and finally got a chance to get a job and ultimately got hired. Well, his staff was maybe a little less overjoyed with the fact that such a new waiter, really with minimal experience, especially minimal fine dining experience, like I was really wet behind the I was definitely had a lot to learn. So what would happen is I kind of got a little nervous at times, and there was I broke something, I think dropped something, whatever, food fell on the floor, they had to remake it. And it kind of became a thing where I would start to get, not teased, but they would assume that I would drop or spill. And there was comments made, and there'd be, right? And what started happening is I was dropping more and more. It was happening more and more. It was just like one of those things where I would go into work and I knew everyone was paying attention to me dropping or spilling or breaking. And because of them, because of me accepting it, all these things, it played out beautifully to where I kept doing it. So I finally had to talk with the boss. I said, look, this is killing me, man. I go, everyone's expecting me to fail. And that's not helping my situation any. I said, just give me a break. Give me a chance. Give me a chance to prove myself. Just stop giving me crap for 1 week and let me prove myself. And you know what? I stopped breaking stuff. I stopped dropping things. And I started being an awesome waiter and eventually became very close to this team and made awesome money. The power of assumption is amazing. It creates things where something maybe wasn't before. And he talks about, when you're living, one, as the wish fulfilled, but when you really believe that this thing that you're assuming is there, is real, and through the assumptive process, through the imagining that goes with it, and just assuming that, yes, this is going to work out. This is all going to work out. This is going to happen. We have great power to create momentum towards it. And it's kind of like I've said before, it's one of those ways that we can look at the fact that maybe, I guess, moments are going to pass between right this very second that you're watching this video and you getting your manifestation. Some form of moments are going to pass. Even if it's instant, it's not during this video. Now, maybe your doorbell's going to ring right now. Heck, I don't know. Maybe it just did, right? But outside of that, it's a way of looking at things in such a way that kind of takes time out of it. And when we can take time out of it, we remove one of the largest handbrakes that most of us have. Why don't I have it now? Why isn't it here? How long is this going to take? Like, so many other questions tend to come from the angle of time. And when you can kind of remove that from your mind, from your process, it makes the frustration, in my mind, far lower. And it really helps you kind of get through the day. And I always think that's one of the things that's so funny is people are like, well, you just got to be happy, right? And then you walk out into the day, and there's a lot of people that think I'm supposed to pretend I'm happy all the time. And it's like, no, you're living life. I mean, you spend the moment, you do the meditation, but you don't just go out on the world and try to pretend everything's the way you imagine it to be. No, it's all happening. Assume it's coming. Assume it's happening. Of course it's going to happen. It's inevitable. How could they resist me? Is ultimately what you should get to. The heart is the primary organ of sense, hence the first cause of experience. When you look on the heart, you are looking at your assumptions. Assumptions determine your experience. Watch your assumption with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Assumptions have the power of objective realization. Every event in the visible world is the result of an assumption or idea in the unseen world. Everything in the world is an assumption. Think of all the different assumptions we have. History repeats itself, blah, 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 right? We have all these different assumptions that many of us hold on just regular things. I mean, that's just one that I've heard so many times throughout my entire life, right? And oddly so, we seem to do that. We seem to repeat. And so the power of the assumption, as Goddard's making, and he's tying in this for a reason. He did some spiritual studies prior to this. So the heart chakra is the one of the greatest chakras to really be able to activate in our lives. The heart chakra and the stomach, the gut, that's the third chakra is the gut, fourth chakra is the heart. And I hate to get all chakra guy on you, but seriously, just for a second. The gut chakra is where you feel. You get a gut feeling about something. You feel a certain way. It feels dangerous, right? You get a very physical world feeling. The heart chakra, and they call it a great leap when you kind of step from the third to the fourth. It's a change in living. It's a change in the way we perceive the world. And in the heart chakra, you begin to feel. You begin to see things from a different perspective, and you realize that it starts to create itself from there. So he ties in the assumption process from the heart, and it really is kind of where that feeling comes from. When you're assuming something, when you really want this to be, when you really need it to be. It's coming from that area of your chest, if you will, that chakra. The present moment is all important, for it is only in the present moment that our assumptions can be controlled. The future must become the present in your mind if you would wisely operate the law of assumption. The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are that which you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. Do you hear how Goddard phrases it? A lot of people try to talk about how you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say that. Again, how can you phrase it in a way that lets people understand the fact that, yes, obviously moments from right this very second, right now, to out to wherever this thing finally happens, tomorrow, the next day, a week from now, moments must pass. Even if manifested instantly, from right this second, it's still going to happen a moment after. Right? So he's talking about how the future becomes the present, how so many of us look at the present and assume this is how it's going to be. We assume that since I don't have it now, I'm never going to have it. These are assumptions. These are beliefs that we create in our mind. These are conversations that we have. These things affect our reality, our lives, our future. The future must become the present in your mind. You're right. Instead of seeing the present, right now, I don't have it. Instead of that, you look at the future, you make it a place where you're in it for the moment, you feel it as the wish fulfilled, and like I've said before, you remove time from it at that point. But now you're in a place that's not currently your existence, obviously, right? Otherwise, right, you just wait for her to come home or him to come home, right? We're creating the scenario. Or the money to just come flowing in. All money comes to me easily and flowing. Someone was saying that, and that's a great affirmation I've been hearing for many, many, many years. I think even before the person they quoted saying it. But the power of the assumption, the power of using our imagination to help create the thing that we're trying to get to. And then using the assumption as a way of kind of talking ourselves through the day. Like, of course this is going to happen. And that's really the kind of stuff that we have to tell ourselves. Of course this is happening. Of course this is going to work. Why wouldn't it? Assumptions also kind of can move in both directions. One point I wanted to bring out. And we're going to get to that. Let me go ahead and finish this last part, and then we'll get into my last little bit. So the last part that Goddard says, be still. Least action, right? Not doing anything is pretty darn low impact. And know that you are that which you desire to be. The end of longing should be being. Translate your dream into being. Perpetual construction of future states without the consciousness of already being them, that is, picturing your desire without actually assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, is the fallacy and mirage of mankind. It is simple, futile daydreaming. When we create all these imaginal scenes in our minds, and we see these things, but we don't actually get ourselves into them. We don't actually put ourselves into it. It's not just an issue of being happy or content. I mean, that's good through life, through your day. You shouldn't be all frustrated and grumpy that you don't have things. But if I'm trying to imagine something, money, for example, I'm trying to imagine what it feels like I've said before, to be driving in that nice car, to be when you're pulling up to the house, the smell of the new house for that matter, the imagining walking through and kind of making dinner and having friends over and how exciting that's going to be to have them all come over and check out your new house. And how, you know, that all those different feelings, like when you go into it and you kind of live it and you give it that emotion, that extra dimension, that's really what does the creation. And he's kind of saying, hey, look, if you don't feel it, all you're doing is just like imagining. You're just kind of drawing a picture with, you know, maybe an outline, and you're not really filling in the details, and it's not going to happen. It's futile daydreaming, as he calls it. So Goddard really gets into the fact, I love it's coming from the heart, but two, the power of the assumption is an amazing thing. It does truly work to get us moving in the direction. Now, one thing I think that's interesting that I've noticed is I think patterns are one of the ways that we can kind of see how assumptions happen in our life. And I've seen negative patterns, so you might keep attracting certain kinds of people, and you keep having issues where the relationship fails, right? Or maybe you keep doing job interviews, and for some reason you just can't seem to get one to land, or you keep trying some behavior and just don't seem to be getting the outcome that you're trying to manifest, and you're wondering why. Well, a lot of the times there's a pattern in there. There's an assumption in there. And you really need to pay attention to some of the things that you're saying. I'll bet you money at some point you're like, every time I get close, it doesn't work. Or, every time I get close to this person, they seem to back away. Or it seems like every time I try to do X, Y, or Z, this happens. And a lot of us have these assumptions. Again, watch how the negative ones work at keeping us away from what we want. Once we see them, and we go, yeah, let me switch that around. Let me change that assumption. And you can do it with like an affirmation of the assumption, but you need to keep telling yourself this is how it is. A good example for me is I'm always fortunate about traffic signals. There's a certain traffic signal that it's always green, and it is. I mean, assumptions start to play out in our lives. We start to, be it work through timing, work through attracting, work through whatever. It's what we end up experiencing. I mean, the mechanics of it's fascinating to me, mind you, yes, but really the assumption is what is doing it. It is this very strong thought process with a belief and an emotion, typically, because when we say it, we can be frustrated or we can be happy. Like, it's pretty cool how it always happens. Like gives you a sense of joy, a sense of calm. Or if you're talking about a negative assumption, you get that frustration. You're like, yeah, just always, every time, it feels like the rug gets yanked out of me. Well, yeah, then it's going to keep happening like that. We've got to catch those things. We've got to pay attention to what's going on inside ourselves or we're going to miss a lot of these things. And I guess I kind of liken it to constructing our dreams, our hopes, our wishes. We're constructing them in our mind. We're doing all this imaginal creation, right? We're drawing out the blueprints, if you will. But we're not putting any soul into it, as I've recently called it. Because I don't know, I kind of liken soul to feeling, or at least the language of the soul is feeling. So we're not putting any of that feeling into it. We're not putting any of that emotion into it, any of that real soul part, which some might say is the divine part of ourselves, right? The part of ourselves that's eternal and forever. The part of ourselves that when it gives its blessing to something, well, now then, all of a sudden, everything changes. So the assumption that, of course, it's always going to work out, it always does, and feeding that assumption and reminding yourself over and over that me and my SP are, of course, going to work out. Of course, all this is going to happen. Of course, we're going to meet each other. Of course, we're going to have a chance to fix things. Of course, we're going to whatever. Of course, I'm going to make more money. Of course, I'm going to have a new car. Of course, I get a new job. Of course, this is going to work out. It needs to happen. My life needs to expand. And as I start going through this assumption, I start to actually feel it's like, yeah, I do. I need things to keep expanding. Right now, I'm having a hard time making ends. I need this to happen. So, of course, this is going to happen. I'm doing all the work towards it. I'm doing the legwork. I'm doing all the things right? That's what assumptions start to do. They start to feed a story. So, assume your way to the thing you're trying to get. Don't worry about naysayers. Again, I'm just going to keep going down this path. This has got to work out. This has to. It has to. If I keep doing this, so, naysayers, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. It's not helping me. Right? And just keep assuming, keep going in the direction you're going. And again, it's the understanding that the imagination is what creates your tomorrow. The being in the, quote, future as a right now and feeling it is what creates that. Your right now is no more real than what your tomorrow right now is going to be. And by focusing on your right now, where maybe you don't have it, you're going to create more of that through your assumptions, through the fact that we keep noticing, we have an emotional response to it, versus assuming that all these people that are talking about stuff they've manifested, all the stuff that you and I have manifested, assuming that, this is the thing to do. This is working. This is creating stuff. I've seen it. Of course this is going to work. Yeah, maybe this takes a couple extra steps. Maybe there's a little bit more to it. But again, I had people that were affecting me spilling stuff badly. Trust me, the assumption starts to create something in others too. It creates an energy. It's amazing how it works. So it's when we finally get to that point, like there was a time, and I really, like a few times I've had this happen, where there was just this, like I needed to be able to get out. Something had to be able to change. Like it was an emotional, powerful, like this has to happen. It was kind of like looking up to the heavens and going, this has to happen. And it's been funny that there's been a number of times in my life where I've had that very pronounced emotional response, and almost instantly, within a day type instantly, all of a sudden doors are opening up, opportunities are in front of me. Now, I've tried to fake that experience before, and it's a little different because it's kind of trying to fake it. So we assume ourselves to it. We get ourselves into that imaginal, to the wish fulfilled. We try to make it that real emotion that we would have at that moment. Whatever it is that you're trying to create, when you have it, what is life going to be like when you have it? How are you going to feel? How are you going to think? How are you going to behave and act? It's the whole concept of, it's like a comfort. When you're in love with someone, for example, it's just that comfort, the fact that I look forward to being with them, that I think about them frequently. It's the way you feel about them already. Yeah, that's the love. So what's different about when you're now together? The excitement of coming home to see them, choosing what we're going to have for dinner, where we're going to maybe go this weekend, what we're going to possibly do when the friends come over. It's the excitement of all that. And for men, maybe it's the, going to, different places, taking them out to restaurants, whatever kind of your thing is. Like men and women, we tell our stories differently within ourselves, right? We've all got our own little ways that we create these realities that we're all living towards. But it's through that assumptive process. It's through that imagining and feeling process. And this is a great way to get there. So Neville talks about it. It's the effortless way. And it really is. It's the path of least resistance, and it is something that requires very little from you. I still think inspired actional things are going to pop up. They might walk into the room where you're at. I consider speaking to someone to still be action, right? If I have to say hi, or, oh, no way, you never come up on this floor, like whatever. Sometimes we need to interact with people. That's all. So there you go. That's probably the action. That's not really hard. So have an assumption and make it happen. That's how it works out. Stand radio style.